Hey everybody, Horseman here, and today I'm going to be bringing to you a Diablo 4 video, and I have not been putting out very many videos, let alone Diablo 4 videos, which I'm sure that some of y'all might have actually been expecting. That being said, I never felt that I had the content that I wanted to put out till now. The reason why I wanted to put out a build about the rogue was because this was a build that I had built up from the ground up, didn't use anybody else's build information or anything like that, just solely made something as I was leveling, and went through it. Turned out to be pretty darn good. If you want to skip all of this, just go to the description and check out that link, and go ahead and just go straight to the build. Now, please keep in mind though that this is a leveling build. This is not the end-all be-all build. As you can see, I am level 54, but it's been working out really well as it stands right now, and I'm going to explain how and why. So, starting off with the skill tree, I am going to take Puncture, only put 1 point in the bat, but I'm also going to be using its modifiers because this is a skill that I will be using in order to replenish energy. I'm going to take Enhanced Puncture to do exactly that, and then I'm also going to take Fundamental Puncture that's going to allow me to apply a vulnerable status on the enemies if they take 2 of the 3 blades that I am putting out there. Next up, the main core skill is going to be Twisted Blades. It is a fun ability. If you've never used it, check it out. Stick 2 blades in the bad guy, run away, and then it comes right on back, and it'll go through all the enemies and do additional damage when it does, which is great. This is the modifier that does that additional damage, and then we have Twisting Blades, where you turn your active cooldowns are reduced by 0.1 seconds per enemy they pass through, up to 2 seconds. So it's nice to have this because the whole point is to get your active cooldowns back at the ready so that way you can use them again. So a lot of this build is going to be focusing on getting my cooldown reduction, energy replenishment, and a few other things that we'll go over as we go. That being said, I only put 1 point into Sturdy because of the fact that I wanted Siphoning Strikes. Critical strikes against close enemies have up to 75% chance to heal you for 3% of your maximum life. So, because of the fact that we're going to be in the thick of things, you want to make sure that you have some defensive passives, in this case, health replenishment, as I go. Next up, I took Weapon Mastery. I'm either using daggers or I'm using swords. So, right now I have one of each. So daggers are going to give me increased damage to healthy enemies, and swords are going to do a flat percentage damage. In this case, for the dash, this is my movement skill. I decided to take this because over Shadow Step, because I like the ability to just use it when there's no enemies around. I mean, that's the primary reason why I took this. Not only that, but later on I found that dash has some additional benefits if paired with certain aspects and other things. So my dash is just as important to me as some of my other abilities now. I did also take enemies damaged by dash take 50% increased critical strike damage from you for 5 seconds. That means every enemy that I pass through, which are going to be plentiful, they will now take additional damage from me. That is exactly what I want. My evade cooldown is reduced by 0.5 seconds when I daze an enemy. My daze is going to come from dash, and I'll explain that later. And then I have excuse me, trick attacks. When you critically strike a dazed enemy, they are knocked down for 0.5 seconds. I like this because I can get certain champions and elites in a constant state of CC if I play this right. So first, go in with my dash and daze everybody, get my imbuement on, get my Twisted Blades going. Once they start spinning around me, they're doing some critical damage, which then knocks them on their butt. They get back up, they're knocked down again, back up, knocked down again, and I can keep them there throughout the entire duration of the fight sometimes. It doesn't work on bosses, of course, but for champions and elites, it's awesome. Alright, Next up, I did take Dark Shroud. This is another defensive ability that's going to help me to reduce some of the damage that I'm taking, and by summoning 5 orbs, and then for each damage that I take, one of those orbs goes away. Now, I do have it to where there's a 14% chance of that orb not being consumed, and then I have for each active shadow, grants 4% increased movement speed. So that's just helpful, just in general, getting through nightmare dungeons, but it's not something that I need for an actual fight so much. So I'm not really focusing on movement speed, though we'll see that come back up throughout the build. Agile, using a cooldown, increases your dodge chance by 12%. So again, I'm in the thick of things. I want to be able to worry about damage mitigation, and I have quite a few cooldowns to consider using. So that's going to help me to not take that damage. Exploit, dealing 18% increased damage to healthy and injured enemies, and then a flat 9% to vulnerable enemies. Vulnerable enemies are just really going to be coming from puncture, nothing else. Coming up, we got Precision Imbuement. Imbued skills gain 9% increased critical strike chance, which is always helpful. And I am going with Poison Imbuement. My character's name is Pestilence. I love the whole poison route to this. I put a full 5 points into that, while also taking Enhanced Poison Imbuement to extend its duration by a full second, and also critical strikes with Poison Imbuement deal 75% increased poison damage. So I do have a heavy emphasis on poison damage and getting those imbuments to work more efficiently. Deadly Venom, increased poison damage, and then I also going into Debilitating Toxins, which makes it so when I am in the thick of things that those guys are going to do less damage to me. Alright, I also did take Shadow Clone. Shadow Clone is going to be another common theme in this build. As you'll see, I love Shadow Clones, and so I want to give them more power to do more damage. And I'm not just using this one here, as you'll see later on. So I do have Shadow Clone maxed out. I have the Prime Shadow Clone as well as Supreme Shadow Clone. Lucky Hit is going to be another factor to consider. Lucky Hit is going to give me some additional bonuses and passives, whatnot, to help me kill things more efficiently. So, but also in this case, Lucky Hit's going to give me back some of the energy that I so crave. So energy regeneration is going to be important. I only put 1 point into this just to help a little bit more with acquiring a Lucky Hit, which will then give me more energy on top of other passive bonuses to Lucky Hit that we can find in our aspects. And then I also have Adrenaline Rush. While moving, you gain 15% increased energy regeneration, so moving around a lot as a melee rogue, so this is going to help me replenish my energy. When it comes to our key passive, I was really considering Close Quarters, Precision, and Victimize. I did end up going with Victimize to do more damage to vulnerable targets, and to make them explode. I may tinker around with some of these other key passives just to see if they are more effective, but this one is working out so well. And it's also very satisfying when they blow up and then die to that. Their bodies go kind of flying all over the place, so very satisfying. As far as my Paragon board, I am only level 54, so I have not got very far, and the only rare glyph that I have slotted so far is going to be Canny, where my non-physical damage increases the non-physical damage an enemy takes from me. I do eventually want to use some other ones like, where's that? There we go, Bane and Efficacy. Yes, Bane and Efficacy. I have to see if there's others. I mean, they're right there, but I haven't really explored any of them yet to see if there's any that I would prefer. But, all right. So that's it for the skill tree and Paragon. Going into my specialization, I know most people like to choose combo points, but I decided that I wanted to have my ultimate cooldown go a little bit faster so I can get my shadow clones up more. My shadow clones, when I activate them, will also bring back up my imbuement and my dark shroud, so it's nice to have this up as often as possible. So I did go with preparation. And this is where the real fun begins, as far as gear. Now, some of these options are still throwaway options, because I have not really figured out all the aspects that I want yet. Again, I've just been kind of playing by ear with whatever drops on the ground, and playing around with the aspects that I've unlocked so far. So some of these throwaway aspects will be replaced at a later time. For the first item, I wanted to have that becoming injured while controlled grants you unstoppable. CC is a huge thing in this game. They like to CC you almost permanently, so I want to make sure that I take a little bit less damage, especially when I am frozen. So this was, kind of a big thing for me. Learned from my Necromancer, who got stun locked on a regular basis. Now that the helmet might actually change eventually. We'll see. For the body, when you hit a crowd control enemy, there's up to 30% chance for that crowd control effect to spread to other unaffected enemies. My rotation really is to dash into a group of baddies, daze them, and hope that that daze will affect others. And then when I start beating on them, if they fall down, maybe other ones will fall down too. That was kind of the idea with this. The unique, so far the only unique that has been useful to this build so far has been Grasp of Shadow, where damaging a vulnerable enemy with a Cutthroat skill has an up to 26% chance to summon another Shadow clone that mimics my attacks. Now, whether these Shadow clones can benefit from your other aspects where they can also leverage the imbuement that you're using at the time, honestly remains to be seen. They're not up for very long, so I don't have a whole lot of time to sit there and see if they're actually there and doing that or not. But it is based off a lucky hit, and I have seen quite a few up all at the same time. The more Shadow clones you have up, the more damage you do. So I felt that this was a very useful unique in this case. For my pants, put if you heal for however much life per second for all the close enemies that are all up in your face. And since you're going to be in the thick of things, it's always nice to have that additional health regeneration. So that's why I chose that one. A little bit of survivability there. For my boots, I wanted to put on, when you dash, you automatically drop a smoke grenade, and that is what dazes the enemies, which is awesome. So I do have a few aspects that and other gems that benefit my dash ability and gives me a little bit extra more power. But because of the fact that smoke grenade is a subterfuge ability, I'll have to look to see where it is, but all my subterfuge abilities do drop another, the Dark Shadow clone that taunts. We'll get to it. For my bow, critical strikes with core skills increase your attack speed. Now, at first, I did not think that my attack speed was going to be all that important until I started using it and realizing that it is awesome to be able to land as many of those puncture hits to replenish my energy and get as many of those twisted blades in as quickly as possible to do the most damage. So as I damage with the core skills, it's just this ever increasing attack speed, and it ends up just absolutely shredding people. Okay, so for my necklace, I do have Shadow clones also mimic the imbuements. That was kind of an intention to help to focus on my imbuements as well as my twisted blades. Focus on my Shadow clones to benefit from my imbuements, as well as focusing on my twisted blades. But the Brutal Heart that I have in there, when you use the Subterfuge skill, leave it behind an unstable Shadow decoy trap, meaning that every time that I use Dash or Dark Shroud, a Shadow clone will appear, and it'll taunt all the enemies to attack it, and then eventually blow up. But what's nice is, again, I'm a rogue, kind of squishy, right? So I don't want things attacking me. So that is definitely part of my fight rotation, where I want enemies to attack my clone, and while I absolutely wail on them with Twisted Blades and other abilities. Next up, I have when I dash, Shadow Clone is spawned at your location that also cast dash. This is not a skill that I absolutely need. Right now it's just kind of nice because it is more damage when I'm using dash, but it's not something that is truly beneficial to the build as of yet. I will likely end up replacing this at some point in time. The Vicious Heart that I have in there, it lowers my regular damage output, but increases my critical strike damage pretty substantially. Every third cast of Puncture is poison imbued, so I don't necessarily have to solely rely on my poison imbuement to do the poison damage or to poison enemies. I can simply just keep using my basic attacks to do that, which is very nice. You'll notice that it is absolutely lowest, and that's been kind of true for some of these aspects, is that because I'm just unlocking it and using it at the Occultist, so these are bare minimum type of aspects right now until I find them in the real world. Alright, the Wrathful Heart in here is awesome. Your damage over time effects are increased by 39%. Of course, right? For each different crowd control effect on the target. And typically I have about 2. Dazed, Knockdown, and when they do get both of them, they just poof, they just go away. But on bosses, because they can't be unstoppable monsters, and staggered bosses will then take 135% of said damage over time. So it is definitely helpful to get that health down when you're fighting those bosses. My Twisted Blades Orbit. I think this is a must-have for any Twisted Blade build. You stab the enemy, kind of run away or do it, whatever it is that you're doing. Those blades will come back to you and then orbit around you a few times. And when it does that, it does a crap ton of damage. And very helpful, especially when it is imbued. So I've come to absolutely love this, and I think it is a 100% must-have aspect for any Twisted build. Now this is another throwaway aspect. I use it simply because it's some extra damage. It's not because I think it's all that awesome or all that useful, but it is passive damage. When I do find something that's a little bit better, I'll likely end up replacing it, but for now it does exactly what it needs to do. It does some extra damage on targets without me having to really do anything other than just exist. So that's awesome. Notice I use health for my armor, and I use damage over time for my weapons. Alright, so that's it for the build. Let's go back to killing some stuff and you can make a judgment. Like I said, I really enjoy this build for what it is, especially as a leveling experience, and I hope that this can be beneficial to you too. I will be tweaking it along the way, may not make some follow-up build videos. If I do, it'll likely end up being at 100 just to see how far I can push it. But until then, I hope if you found this helpful, please throw it a like. If you have any comments or questions, throw it in the comment section below. I honestly don't know if I'm going to put out a whole lot more Diablo 4 videos. It just kind of, if it decides to come to me that I want to do so, then I'll do it at that point in time. But like I said, you know, I do hope that this was useful. If you did, come back for more. Thank you for watching. Horseman, out.